So Bradley Calhoun worked at the Dollar General at the time of this incident. So he was there. He saw Donald Smith. He saw the periwinkles. He had the whole scene in mind. He saw Donald Smith. He saw the way he reacted. He saw the way he reacted and interacted with the periwinkles. And on that date, and set the whole thing up. He set up the video as well, which we saw clips of. We're going to see more of that, and we will have seen more of that. And obviously, the 911 call, the traumatic 911 call, and the testimony, of course, of the mother. Introducing my guest, Julie Rendelman, who will be with me the rest of this hour and into our next hour for the daily debrief. So I'm great to have you here.
Thank you.
What did you think of Mr. Calhoun's testimony?
Look, this case is absolutely overwhelming.
Yeah.
And, you know, people have said the prosecutor did a great job of putting the pieces together. They did, although I have to say that the pieces are fairly easy to put together.
Right.
And it's not to take from the prosecutor, but this is a witness that can establish that Donald Smith met the periwinkles,
right,
where he met them, and kind of set the stage for how the course of events happened, that they eventually ended up at Walmart.
Right.
And so it's very powerful, simple but powerful.
Right. Establish the videotape and the surveillance and all of that. Yeah. Yeah. He's a very and he has no motive. There's nothing in it for him. There's nothing. He doesn't know either side. So there's nothing, you know, that puts him there in that sense of the word, and that he's got anything involved in either party. So he's innocent in that way.
Absolutely.
Nothing having to do with either.
I agree. I think him, along with many other people, probably have this feeling, a second guess,
right,
that they should have known or they should have done something. Not his fault at all, but I'm saying
right,
I'm sure that there must be such a feeling of guilt for many of the witnesses that testified that didn't
right,
realize kind of
right,
what was happening.
Right. Well, I think that guilt, if there is some, is only worsened, made more grave by listening to the testimony that we heard of the medical examiner who testified about the condition of the little 8-year-old girl's body,
right,
and the examination that she had. I'm not going to comment on the testimony before we hear it. I want our viewers or listeners to hear some of that testimony before Julie and I comment on it. So without further ado, let's go to the testimony that we heard earlier today of the medical examiner in this case of Florida versus Donald Smith, death penalty case, and the death of this 8-year-old girl. Let's go to that.
Dr. Rao, what opinion do you have of this mark that I've circled on State 63?
Okay, so those are areas where there are abrasions, which means that the force applied and the friction causes the skin actually to come off. So when the skin comes off, those are referred to as abrasions. When the skin is intact and there is injury underneath the skin, those are called bruises or contusions. So she has the bruises or contusions. You can see the blue areas right here, but then she's got these abrasions where the skin is actually rubbed off.
Let me direct your attention. We're going to skip 64 and I'll come back to it. Direct your attention to State 65. You talked about the petechial hemorrhaging. Is it demonstrated more clearly in this photograph?
Yes, so there are a few things you can see right here. Here the skin again is abraded, right there, right here. And it is in a linear pattern, which means that in this case there was a ligature used to strangle the child. So that force that's exerted by the overlying ligature that's used to strangle the kid actually caused the skin to be abraded.
Let me direct your attention to State 65. Is this a photograph of the opposite side of Cherish's neck as was reflected in the prior photograph?
Yes.
And what do you see in this photograph?
So here again you can see the bruising right there. You can see bruising right here. And it's in a linear pattern, you can see. And then you get the petechiae right here. And even in the area of the ligature application.
Now, Dr. Rao, can you tell the jury anything about the ligature used to strangle Cherish Periwinkle?
I was not able to actually see. Sometimes you can see the weave of the fabric. I couldn't tell you that, but I could tell you that it was a very broad. It could be a T-shirt that she was wearing, or that was used apart from her clothing to tie it so with so much force to give you that ligature mark.
Let me direct your attention to State 67. Does this reflect the right backside of Cherish Periwinkle's neck?
Yes, again you can see the ligature mark right there, and you can see the contusion, abrasion right here.
State 68, is that the left side of the back of her neck?
Yes, again you can see the linear pattern.
Let me go back now to States 64. Will you orient the jury to this photograph and explain what is reflected here?
Okay, so you're looking at her mouth and her nose and her chin. So you'll see that all the injuries are in a kind of a linear pattern, which to me indicates that the pressure that was put like that, so you caused all those injuries on that area of the face. So demonstrating this right here, the bruising on the chin, the abrasion on her lip, the abrasion right here, and this is the nose, but the inside down between the nostrils, all, if you look at it, it's like in one pattern. So the effect of smothering or keeping her quiet with force enough to cause those injuries.
Now, these photographs are obviously taken after Cherish Periwinkle's body was cleaned, and yesterday the jury saw photographs of her body as it was collected at the scene. Did you actually see that her nostrils were bleeding from these injuries?
Yes.
Let me direct your attention to State 69. Is this a close-up of the nostrils and upper lip of Cherish Periwinkle?
Yes.
And does this photograph reflect those injuries that you just told the jury about?
Yes.
State 70, also a close-up photograph of the left nostril of Cherish Periwinkle, is that right?
Yes. There's another feature that you can see, because if you look down here, this is the gum margin between her teeth and her gum. So that same pressure caused bleeding into the lining of her gum.
Let me show you State 71, because I think there we can see that bleeding, if you'll point that out.
Yes, you can see the hemorrhage or bleeding between the teeth and the gum margin.
And do you have an opinion as to causation for bleeding in the gum line?
That again is the pressure that was applied to her, the front of her face.
Now,
Hi, I'm Lise Wheel, back with Law&Crime. That was Dr. Rowe discussing the medical examiner on the Donald Smith case, the death penalty case out in Florida for Cherish Periwinkle. Julie Rendelman, my guest here today in the studio. Boy, Julie, that was just horrific testimony. I have to bring in, here before we wrap up this hour, a photo that we were able to get. Our wonderful producers here. There we go. Look at that photo. That photo was taken today of Donald Smith in the courtroom. That is Donald Smith posing for court photographers in the courtroom. That is taken today in the courtroom. What do you think of that? I mean, it doesn't have to be a legal opinion. There's no legal ruling on that. But that is a defendant that is on trial for the heinous murder, death penalty case of an 8-year-old child. And he's posing like that for court photographers? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. That's my opinion anyway. My subtle opinion. Julie?
I mean, no one thought he was normal when we started this trial, and he's been Go ahead, I'm sorry.
We'll close with that. No one thought he was normal when we started this trial. We'll close with that. I'm Lise Wheel for Law&Crime.